Okay, it's queen caging day number 1. What I'm doing here is I'm going to go ahead and make a pallet of queen banks. I prefer to use queen banks over queenless just because they generate their own brood. Some people prefer queenless because they think they have a lower mortality rate on the banked queens. I don't have that much of an issue now that we're kind of gotten the hang of it. There was a learning curve. We did lose a lot of queens when we started doing this a couple years ago. All I do is I build it very much like I will, like you're building a queen cell finisher colony. I do like a frame of honey on the outsides, acts as a little insulation. I got a frame of pollen here because I'm going to put the queens here, so you want to have food source right next to it. And then the rest of the frames are as much open brood as I'm able to find. There's cat brood in there too, but you want open brood in the top box because that's going to draw the nurse bees up top. I've got a queen excluder here, and it's just a regular old double deep. I've got the queen here, the original queen, in this colony. What I'm doing is I'm going to requeen all these hives with these new batches of queens. She's still really good, so I'll patch her up one of our honey colonies, or I'll throw her in a honey colony or something. And I'm doing that because there's a really fantastic research paper from Oregon State University. I've got a link to it on my Queen Care page on my website. It's a really nice PDF file, a lot of pictures, and they recommend banking, building your queen banks if you're doing a queen bank with the same age queens as what you're going to be banking. And ever since I've done that, I've had a much lower mortality rate. The first year we tried doing a queen bank, could be a coincidence, I'm not sure. We had a queen that was old. She was like a year or two old, and I think we lost like 400 queens in the queen banks that year. It was really devastating. I actually freaked out so bad I went to a queenless queen bank, but as I did more research and had time to practice, I prefer a queen right. I also find the bees are a little more selective if you have a queen right colony. So if you have a queen that's got like a pheromone issue or is weak for some reason, they're going to get culled out in the bank. And it sucks because, yeah, I lose queens, but I would rather them die here before I put them in the mail and ship them to Oregon or Indiana or something. Because if they can't just stay for a couple of days here in this bank, they're not going to survive being shipped across the country and, installed into somebody else's colony. So this sort of, in my mind, I like the bank short term. Now, we just do it for a few days till we can get the orders made. I don't do any long-term stuff. I find it better just because it culls out all the weak queens that have low pheromone production, queens that maybe didn't mate, which shouldn't be an issue for us because we cage them at cat brood, but some people do cage them at eggs. That's one way to select if you want to pull them off at eggs, although you're really producing an inferior queen in my opinion. And some queens just can't handle the stress of being caged. I've had queens that look great and you put them in a cage and they're dead. And I don't know if they were just mishandled, or I think it's just a stress issue, probably a combination of both. This thing will weed all those out. So that's why I always also cage a lot of extra, because, if we lose 10% of the queens or 5% or whatever, I have to plan on that for the customers. Now, when you have a really strong triple deep colony like this, you can put upwards of 100 queens in there, but because this is our first week caging and we don't know exactly what we're going to get, this is our first time really delving deep into the mating nukes. And I'm just got a ton of way more orders than I was anticipating this year, which I'm grateful for, but I'm a little stressed out about. I'm going to build a bunch of queen banks, and I'm just going to put 50 in each to reduce the risk in case something happens. If there's a rogue queen up there that I missed, there was a queen cell that I missed, you got 100,000% check for any queen cells, because if a virgin hatches in there and you've got 100 queens or whatever, they're going to be dead. And I've been there, and you don't want to be there when you have to call the customers. So shake every frame off, inspect it with a magnifying glass. Don't play around with that. You can lose $10,000 overnight or something, just crazy. So that one's pretty much ready. I'm going to try this year too. I've always run the triple deeps. We're also going to try running, that's a hive and a half. I need to fix that one. I'm going to try just running some double deep queen banks too. I'll probably just throw a queen excluder in between there. I don't think I've ever tried that. I'm thinking it might help the bees just be more concentrated around the queens, because if you have a triple deep, if it's a little bit weak, the bees are going to want to be drawn down to where the mated queen is, and they'll pull them off your caged queens. So I'm going to try both and see which one I prefer this year. But just to be safe, we're just going to do 50, 50, 50, 50, and then I'll continue to build. All of these are possible queen banks, or they are they're also our support hives and our cell builders. So we kind of just keep them all right down here. And that's what's going on here. Another thing I'm doing a little different with the banks this year is we are going to medicate them. I've got some terramycin here, and that is Fumidil, which I've personally never used until just this year. The state bee inspector called me a little while ago and recommended we started treating all our non-honey producing colonies, at least. Obviously I can't treat when they're making honey with that, because there were two beekeepers in the neighboring county sent some bees off to get sampled by the USDA. We did as well, and they came back with 2 rare gut parasites, which the bee inspector said he had never even heard of. And apparently the gut parasite can be destroyed with Fumidil. I mean, normally people use it for Nosema, which is not an issue here. We had our bees tested this past year for Nosema, and we were at very, very low levels. It's more of a cold weather issue. But he recommended we treat with Fumidil just in case that gut parasite is spreading in the area. And honestly, with all people saying all that bee die-off this year, I'm a little paranoid, so we are going to treat. That terramycin I rarely use. It's been in the closet for years. I hope it's still good, but I thought, you know, why not? I want the queen banks to be as healthy as possible. I just take a little with my hand and spread it. And the Fumidil, I just mix it pretty well. And I've just been misting the bees. I did some test hives and they seem fine. You want to mix it with a little bit of sugar water, what the bee inspector told me. And he recommends 1 tablespoon of Fumidil per gallon of sugar water, and just to drizzle them. They recommend 2 treatments once per week. I don't know if I'll end up doing that, but he said even 1 treatment would be better than nothing. So that's what I'm doing, and that way we can pretty much say that this hive is going to be pretty well controlled as far as disease goes. I did spray all the boxes there, and I've just been doing a light mist. I tried spraying a pallet of hives a few weeks ago, like super heavy, just to see if it would hurt them. Didn't do any damage that I could tell, so I've just been lightly misting on each box just like that. I guess it's good enough. I'm just not really familiar with it, but it doesn't seem to hurt, and it's pretty cheap. And, you know, so why not? That way, hopefully, we don't have to worry about any diseases being transmitted to those queens while they're banked, so everybody can get really good, fresh, clean queens as far as disease goes. So some hard lessons learned already with these minis, these new ones. Number 1, yeah, 100% need to do starter strips. We've been trying to let them draw their own frames without starter strips, and this is what happens. I mean, almost like 9 out of 10 of them are drawing the comb, I guess, almost like vertically, when they should be drawing them horizontally, and they're crossing all 3 frames, so they're connecting all the frames together. When you pull a frame out, you end up losing it. We've been doing some now with some plastic foundation we've been gluing with wax, and they're drawing the frames perfect. I've also got some of my old 4 frames from last year that do have a few frames drawn out properly. We put some of those in there when we build them, and they've acted as a guide too. So unfortunately, yeah, this queen's ready to cage. She's got some cat brood, but this frame is, you know, probably going to be completely destroyed. You know, I wedge it if we can. Like, this one's big enough, I might be able to wedge it together with the frames. A lot of it, unfortunately, I'm just cutting out, and I'm probably throwing it in one of the 5-frame nucs over there or something, just so that it doesn't get ruined. We can at least let that hatch out. A lot of it I'm breaking off, and I'm just smashing the comb up here into the top bar. That sort of acts as a guide too, so the second round is better, but it's been pretty bad, this original batch. We're fixing as we go, so it's taking a long time to cage all the queens. Another thing, you definitely need some kind of float. I was kind of on the fence about it. We did it last year. I decided not to do it this year because I thought I would save some money because the floats are a little pricey. Yeah, you definitely end up losing bees. I found several queens that have drowned, so you think $25 a queen probably was better just to invest in some kind of float. We're trying this 1/8 inch hardware cloth to act as kind of a ladder. It semi-works. It's not quite as good as the 3D printed floats, I don't think, but it's still a little early to tell. But I know I mentioned in the past, I was like, don't use starter strips for the minis. I'm probably not going to use a float or something. Definitely do. Put something in your syrup feeder. Definitely either do, you can glue in wax foundation if you want to do that, or you can cut in plastic foundation. Or if you've got old minis from the previous year, you know, just give them one frame up here against the feeder. That's where they like to start building first, and that will help guide it. But if you just put 3 empty plastic frames, this is what's going to happen. And by the time we've got to them, that's just a lot of brood that's getting completely wasted. So it's extremely frustrating. It's extremely time consuming. you know, live and learn, hard lesson learned. We're going to patch things up. We're going to get this queen order done, but it's excruciatingly slow. I'm not going to lie. So, lesson learned. Fun times with these minis. They didn't draw any frames. They decided to make a little hive here in the feeder because we didn't use any kind of float or anything. So they love building comb in the feeder first. I can definitely see eggs and larvae in there. I don't know if there's cat brood, but there should be, just because that's this week's batch of queens. So I literally just gonna have to scrape all of that out completely. I'm gonna give them a little hardware cloth ladder that we made. Probably gonna take that comb and smash it up here. Try to replace maybe one of these frames with a better frame of comb that's drawn out. And of course we do find some that occasionally do draw their frames correctly, and what I do is I take those good frames and we move them over, usually in here. I try to make sure they have at least one good frame per mini. Again, pretty slow going. It's just how it is. What we're doing is we're using a color system to tell us which. Last year we took permanent markers and we wrote the date and we have the queen, what there was, eggs, larvae, cat brood, whatever. That's way too much because we have way too many now, too many minis. What we're doing is doing a color thumbtack system. So like this week, cat brood is yellow. So we have a different color thumbtack for each week because we make the minis on a weekly basis. We cage them every 3 weeks. This week, yellow is ready. So I can just kind of scan around and go, okay, I need to run and go to all the yellow minis. And those are the ones I'm really going to check. Like a red pin also, that's a little extra thing. That's like, oh, this one's weak. It probably needs bees. If I've caged the queen and I need to come back and add a queen cell this evening, I'll give it a white pin. And then I'll give it a new color depending on when that cell will hatch. And the new queen will be ready to pick. So that's kind of how we're doing it. It's much faster. I still do write notes on the top if we need extra information, but the colored thumbtack system is just much quicker. You can just come out here and just scan because they're all getting mixed up now. Another thing we did do, it's a little tedious with these straps, but they've really been worth it because we have so many storms here since we're near the Gulf. I mean, even today it's looking a little iffy. It was supposed to be sunny and the weather's getting a little rough. These things were like $1 or less on Temu, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyways, but we strap them down here. They just take a second to unstrap them, and I don't have to worry about them blowing away. It's a lot better than the bricks that we used to use last year, so that is an improvement. But you know, we're still getting the hang of these things. They're pretty tedious. I mean, thankfully, we've also got all these 5-frame nucs to supplement. I'm probably gonna have to pull some out of there just because the minis are just tough. The first round with them is always the worst. You don't know what the mating rate's going to be. You don't know how many of these you're going to have to deal with that draw the frames bad. It's always kind of chaotic, and you spend a ton of time trying to fix them and patch them up and rebuild them and then going to shake bees and add to them. Once they're established, they're great. They just print queens like nothing. They're just little money-making machines. But building them, it just sucks. The 5 frames are much easier initially. It's just those cost a lot more, you know, to just pull a queen out of a 5-frame nuc. I'd much rather move those and make honey with them. That would be far more profitable than selling a $25 queen. But unfortunately, we have to keep the nucs around to just make until we know for a fact we have enough minis established. And then I'm going to take all those and move them on to honey. But for now, they're here, and thank goodness we did because we need them. Here's another one. Didn't get starter strips. You can see the frame is connecting all 3 frames. There's no way to safely remove it. Plus, they're drawing some in the feeder, and they even had a little ladder, and they're still doing it. I can see some cat brood in there, so, you know, thankfully we're getting queens out of this, but the problem is by the time you basically destroy all of their brood nest and all of their stored honey, and you take their queen, is this mini going to be alive, you know, to incubate this next queen cell I'm about to put in there? I don't know. Probably not. Some will, some won't. And we'll have to rebuild them. It's been not using starter strips was a massive mistake this year. And again, we're fixing it as we can, but it's a slow process. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Just absolutely terrible. I mean, there's cat brood. There's definitely a mated queen. Somebody's getting a queen, but I'm afraid we may lose this mini. Couldn't have drawn it any worse, honestly. So I had to cut all the old frames out, refill their feeders, and then I gave them a frame of good drawn comb here. And, you know, hopefully they can reestablish. Here's what I've been doing with the poorly drawn mini frames. I just lay them in, again, lay them in the nuc. That way they'll incubate. That brood won't be wasted, you know. I mean, this nuc doesn't need it, but the alternative is it dies. I don't want that. So, unfortunately, that's how it's going right now. Here's one that's not too bad. I still got a frame of nothingness and then a couple well-drawn frames. Got a very nice queen up here. We're just going to check, make sure there's cat brood. If they are, she's going in a cage. Well, hit a good little stretch here where they're actually drawing the frames nice. It's always so nice when there's not a ton of dead bees in them. The population's a little low, but they're okay. They've got all 3 stages of brood. Frames are not drawn poorly. When I come across and I see a little piece like this that's going to be in the feeder, I just go ahead and break that off. And then I'll take this piece, and then I'll take this frame here that hasn't been drawn, and this is what I'll wedge. I'll smash it up and wedge it in the top bars. They do seem to reform that new wax pretty easy, and that'll help them get started with this 3rd frame. See, believe it or not, just having that little bit of wax there will actually help them draw the frame correctly, which they're going to in this case because they're going to use these 2 frames as a guide to draw this one off of. But if you have nothing on any of the frames, this will help. Probably still not as good as like putting a proper starter strip in there, but in a bind, this will work. Okay, this is what you want to see. This is a perfectly balanced mini to me. They've got their 3 perfectly drawn frames. They're not connected. No dead bees in the internal feeder. They obviously were built with a ladder. That probably helped. And the population's really full. If they get any fuller than this, these suckers will just straight abscond on you. We've had a bunch already this week. We found they'd have 3 frames of cat brood and not a single bee in the box or a queen. Just completely abandon it because the minis, although they can swarm, they're more likely just to fully abscond when they get crowded. So it's extremely important that you pull the queens out on a regular schedule. And if you can't pull the queens out, you can pull frames of brood. But I've also noticed, and don't take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but I have noticed when I start pulling frames of brood and bees, if I leave the queen, it also seems to trigger an absconsion. So what we're doing now is, if we're going to take frames, like if I wanted to pull a frame or 2 and give it to a weaker colony, I cage that queen first. So she's got to have cat brood, she's got to be ready. Then I can take it, and then I add a new cell in there, and that seems to hold them. But if I just pull these 2 frames out and leave them with a frame of cat brood and a queen, more than likely, I guarantee I'll come back next week and there won't be a single bee in this box, and it'll be just a frame of dead bees. I mean, a frame of dead cat brood right here. Got a late start today with having to build the queen banks and find all the equipment and get everything set up, and remember how to do it. Haven't caged queens a little bit, so slow start, but still got 67 really beautiful queens here. You can't really see them with all the bees. They're really looking great. Looks like we got a really good set of mating on this first round, and I can tell that we're trending more Italian in our genetics because these queens are really gold. There's a lot of banded ones, orange with a black band around their abdomen, but are really beautiful queens. And that's the queen bank there. I like to leave a little, like I said, leave a little extra gap there so it doesn't, cages don't butt up against the box. You don't have to do it that way, and hopefully they'll be okay. And then we'll have the other ones here set up. We'll just keep throwing a frame in there like that every single day. Here are the queens we caged yesterday. They still look really good. Bees are all over them. Seem like they've accepted them. All the cages are well covered. I only found 1 dead queen in the whole batch, so honestly that's pretty good. Usually the biggest die-off happens like in the first day or 2, so if we only lost 1 out of that batch for the first night, makes me feel pretty good. Beautiful. I love when they do this, and I love when it's a whole frame of brood. Very nice. Thank you, bees. Wow, this one is pretty bad. Not much you can do to save that, really. It's what a waste. Here's another mistake we've picked up on. I think I said in one of the previous videos that I like to build them and let them settle for a few days or a week or whatever, then come back and check them so I don't disturb them. Well, that's turned out to be a mistake too, because what happens is you leave that cell cup in there, and what they'll do, the bees will take the little bit of wax that's on the queen cell and they'll use that as a guide to start drawing the frames. So what'll happen, because the queen cell is in between the frames, it immediately causes the bees to draw the frames incorrectly. And the cup is here, and it's built into it, and it pretty much ruins that comb. So actually we found it's better now that as soon as we set these things out at night, We're trying to. There's a lot to do, but the goal is to come back the next morning after they've been set out in the field and pull that cell cup off. And that, I think, will help maybe not prime them to draw the frame correctly right from day one. So that's been a mistake too that we've noticed. Here's a good example of one of the absconding colonies that we've seen. They're ones we just let lay a little too long. We weren't ready to cage yet. And obviously it was a full box. Had a lot of cat brood, had a lot of larvae. It's all ruined now. Comb's good. A strong hive will clean all that up, but that's what the problem with the minis are. People say, oh, they swarm. And again, yeah, they do sometimes. But more often than not, they just fully abandon the hive. That's what you call an absconsion, and you just lose everything. You lose the queen, you lose the bees. If you don't get to that comb soon, the hive beetles will get in there and just turn it to mush. So you lose them a lot. I mean, the flip side is they're super easy to rebuild, but still pretty aggravating. So you have to really stay on top of these things. And as soon as you see cat brood, you've got to get that queen out of there. Okay, we're going to put 50 in this double deep queen bank. I've never done a double deep queen bank before. I don't know any reason why it would really do any different. But we're just going to put 50 in because I don't want to risk losing more than that. Although they should be fine. Good strong queen bank here. Alright, good luck, girls. I'm just going to show you guys how I box up some queens. We're going to start shipping them out today. We just use some of these little mini shippers for some of the smaller orders. You're going to have a wet sponge that's full of water. I just poke a hole in that Ziploc bag so the bees can still get there and drink from it, but it doesn't dry out too much and it doesn't leak so much water that it damages the cardboard. And then I've got just a little bit of queen candy. That's just powdered sugar and water formed into a paste. Same kind of candy I use for the queen cages. That way the bees can come over and eat. So what you want to see here is really good coverage of each cage. So you can see there's just 5 cages in there, but it's well covered. I believe the rule of thumb is about 1.5 cups of nurse bees for every 100 queens. So you can kind of divide that up how you want, but truly you just want to make sure the cages are well covered. If it's really hot, like 100 degrees outside or more, you want to add fewer bees, and if you're in a colder climate, of course, you want to add more bees. I like doing this outside. We just do it on the back of our little golf cart here near the queen banks, because if there are any older bees, they're going to fly back to the parent colony, and the younger nurse bees are going to stay to take care of the queens. And also it'll actually draw in worker bees that are young and want to take care of the queens. So you get a little boost that way. And of course you don't want to do this in your kitchen either. So there's a little bit larger of a box. Here's a bigger order. This one was a 100 queen order. You can see it's pretty well full. What we do for some of the larger orders is if you order at least 20 queens, we give 1 free queen to account for any losses. I don't do that for the smaller orders just because I can't eat that many queens. But like this guy that ordered 100, he really has 105 queens in there. I can tell I'm a little rusty. I haven't built a box since last year. What I should have done is I should have taken these shipping bars and glued like a row here, left a gap with the food and water, and then had the other 2 bars. I stupidly started gluing the shipping bars to the side and put the food and water over here, which the bees will be fine. But you can kind of tell these cages I had to turn sideways. I couldn't have them completely to the side. But honestly, it's going to be okay. I just got to get back in the habit of doing it. We're going to run these to the UPS store because I spoke to my UPS lady, and although she will come and pick them up, I think they charge me like 25 bucks or something for a pickup fee. She kind of warned me not to do it because she's going to be driving around all day with these queens in the truck, and it's hot, and obviously the UPS guys in my area, they don't have AC yet, and it's just really bumpy. We're in the country, a lot of dirt roads. So she actually and we did that last year. We didn't have any problems, and it is convenient if they just pick it up from the farm. But she really recommended, since we're trying to ship more queens this year, that we start taking it to the nearest UPS store, which is a little over half an hour away, which kind of sucks, to be honest. But you know, it's climate controlled. They can put them in a dark area. They're safer. And the UPS store I'm going to take them to is the last stop for all the UPS vehicles before they go to the central hub. And I'm just not allowed to take them to the central hub. That's where they'll go on the plane. They'll send them to Tallahassee, get on the planes and stuff. So that's kind of the shortest distance. So the queens will be safer. The problem with that, of course, is I got to spend an hour or 2 or whatever it's going to be to drive out there and drop them off and get back. So we're probably just going to start shipping queens 1 day a week. I'm thinking Monday is probably the best way to get them out early in the week, because if there's any problems, they're far more likely to make it to the customer that week, because we've already learned the hard way. If you ship queens at the end of the week and there's a delay, they can get held overnight in a warehouse or something for the weekend. So if you do ship queens, ship them early. That's why I'm just going to start doing Mondays. And just to save me on the time, I'm just going to have to do it one day a week, and we'll just have to kind of figure that out. But just wanted to kind of show you guys how we get all these things boxed up. And I'm going to go drop these off at the store, and we're going to keep caging. We still have a lot to do.